Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Shahid. But today is the 29th of March 2022. These are the stories that we will be talking about during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the meeting that is going to take place in China, for which our Foreign Minister Shahid Qureshi has left. And of course, this is on the invitation of State Council and Foreign Minister of China, Wang Yi. This is the third meeting with the foreign ministers of the neighboring countries of Afghanistan that is going to be held starting from today and until the 31st of March 2022. Our foreign minister will also be interacting with counterparts from participating countries on the sidelines of this very important meeting. At the same time, our foreign minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, talking about Afghanistan, has also said that it should not be seen through a regional prism but as a shared and collective responsibility. He was of course referring to the crisis in Afghanistan. We'll be coming back, but after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. For our first segment, we've been joined in the studios by Dr. Manzoor Afridi. He's a foreign affairs expert, and we are going to talk about Foreign Minister Shahid Qureshi Saab's visit to China to attend the third meeting of the foreign ministers of neighboring countries of Afghanistan that begins today and goes on until the 31st of this month. Dr. Saab, we all know how Pakistan has been working diligently and aggressively in order to find a solution to the current crisis that engulfs Afghanistan. At the same time, we also know that China has been supporting Pakistan in its endeavors in order to find some kind of a solution for the current Afghan crisis. How important is this meeting in that respect?
Umar Khalid Saab, this meeting is going to be held in a very critical situation. I mean, on one side, there is the international community who is not going to help in a concrete way the Afghan government or the Afghan masses. And on the other hand, there are neighboring countries of Afghanistan who are very much supportive now of Afghanistan, where China is there and Pakistan is there and some other countries. So this meeting, which is the third one, and this initiative was also taken by Pakistan last year in September. Now it is going to be held in Beijing for 3 days. So let's to have a regional consensus on Afghanistan. This is important because now America or the NATO forces, they are not there in Kabul. So the neighboring countries, they are the states where the direct or indirect impacts or consequences of the Afghanistan situation will be there. So that's why the first concern of the neighboring countries, they have to help Afghanistan and also to have stability over there. So there are so many common things among these countries. For example, that was China who also during the Dr. Ashraf Ghani's era also convened so many such conferences, the trilateral mechanism, and Salahuddin Rabbani, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Mr. Wang Yi, all the three foreign ministers of these countries, they participated in Beijing, at Islamabad, and also in Kabul. Now it is a continuation of that mechanism. And
when you talk of continuation of this mechanism, we all should also remember that Pakistan had initiated this neighboring countries format way back in September 2021. Well, not way back, but a couple of months back. And this was all to evolve a regional consensus and an approach on the situation in Afghanistan. When you see what is currently happening in Afghanistan, how do you feel the countries need to work together aggressively or proactively in order to find a solution that is durable for our neighboring country?
When there is no diplomatic recognition to be extended to Kabul government from the international community, then of course some countries, they have to come forward. And in this sense, China is there. Of course, Pakistan is always there to help Afghanistan or to have any kind of evolving situation there and to assess it. For example, these countries, I mean the regional or neighboring countries of Afghanistan, in the patronage of China, we can say they can work very well. We have a mechanism, we have a platform, that is Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Of course.
China is the founding member, Pakistan is permanent member since 2017. And Afghanistan is also an observer over there. So no doubt that they can work. Yes, Russia is now little bit, there's engaged over there in Ukrainian crisis, but Russia will also be there. So now if there is no international recognition to the Kabul government, they are in dire need of economic assistance, also also food package, and to make them safe from the collapse. The only way, let's to have an informal way. For example, if there is no a concrete diplomatic recognition, so no problem on humanitarian basis, informal way, we can help them. The Taliban, I mean, who are the rulers now of Afghanistan, they have requested repeatedly. OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, also, in last year requested the international community for, more economic aid. Now, in this month, in March, the OIC Foreign Ministerial Conference held at Islamabad also requested again and repeatedly asked the international community to help the Afghan masses.
When our Foreign Minister Shahid Qureshi Sahab, Dr. Sahab, talks about Afghanistan being a shared responsibility, also that there needs to be a regional approach as far as Afghanistan is concerned, what does that entail? What does that exactly mean in your point of view?
This is a globalized world. And when war on terror started, so all countries, almost all countries of the world, they participated. Pakistan was made as a non-NATO ally, as a frontline state in the war on terror. So now, when there was a negotiation between the America and the Taliban, Pakistan was there. Why? Because it was the shared and responsibility of the international community. Now it is the responsibility of United Nations, other regional organizations, especially focusing on Afghanistan, neighboring countries of Afghanistan, all the major powers of the world. They have to look for the betterment of Afghanistan, because now we can't ignore each other. Our future is same. Our future destiny is there, which is very common. For example, if we lived some 100 years back, then okay, story was different. But now in this globalized world, digitalized world, it's very, very, difficult, if not impossible, to be away from each other. So that's why it is the international community where all countries of the world, they are there. It is their responsibility. So this is shared responsibility.
When you also talk of shared responsibility, I'd like to say also something that Shahid Qureshi Sahab quoted in a tweet that he posted. He said, "We will run through the situation of peace in Afghanistan, discuss its economic development and connectivity projects." Do you feel these countries which are going to be part of this third meeting are and can help Afghanistan with its connectivity projects, with its development projects, and can also attract investment from other countries?
No doubt, because Afghanistan is a landlocked country. Central Asian states, they are landlocked. They have no direct access to the open waters. So that's only possible for them, Central Asian states and Afghanistan, only through Pakistan, the shortest way. One thing. Second, this area, I mean South Asia, Central Asia, this is full of connectivity. CPEC is there in South Asia. The Central Asian corridor, right? Also the near to it, I mean the Mongolia, Russia, China corridor is there. Lapis Lazuli, where Afghanistan is also a stakeholder, that is there. The TAPI, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline, that is there. CASA 1000 project, if we include Afghanistan, then that is CASA 1300 project, right? That is there from Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. So there is a bunch of networks, and Afghanistan can play very, very important role in future if stability comes over there, because it is a junction and it is a connecting point between Central Asia and South Asia.
That is so true. And also China, before we end this segment, has said it is willing to extend CPEC to Afghanistan. So of course stability in Afghanistan is very important, and once China and all the other important countries of the region get together to improve the current plight of Afghan people and the country, it will only lead to progress, not only for the Afghan people, for Afghanistan, but also for the region in particular. Thank you very much, Dr. Manzoor Afridi Sahab, to have joined us and to have talked to us about, of course, this third meeting that is being held of the foreign ministers of neighboring countries of Afghanistan, starting from today and going on until the 31st of March. Our second segment pertains to the latest as far as the Ukraine crisis is concerned, and also how the world economy, especially that of developing countries, is being impacted because of it. We've been joined by Ariba Shahid, who is an economic journalist. Ariba, thank you very much to have joined us. Ariba, how do you see this economic crisis in Ukraine that is as a result of what is happening in the region, and how is that in your point of view impacting or going to impact the economy of developing countries? We have heard about the report by UNCTAD and also the report by our finance ministry that talks about the issues that our economy is going to curtail as a result of that. What's your take on that?
So the general sense is that war is already damaging on economies, whether it's your economy itself that is at war or whether, the spillovers fall onto you. So the world was focusing on equitable growth and finance over the past few years. However, with COVID-19 hitting, and then when you add on to the Russian-Ukraine conflict, the impact on the economy is obviously adverse because the uncertainty it brings into the global scene, and in addition to that, the uncertainty it brings into commodity prices cannot be discounted. This is essentially very important for countries that import a lot of their commodities. Because that is when, the impact plays in a lot. So the petrol prices that we're seeing rising tremendously over the past few days, owing to this crisis, has an impact on the inflation of a country, especially a developing country where lots of people are living below the poverty line. So war, in its sense itself, is not ideal for any economy, regardless. However, when we talk about Pakistan specifically, we can see more inflation coming in as commodity prices rise amidst uncertainty.
Thank you very much to have joined us and to have come all the way to the studios. When we see all the updates as far as the crisis in Ukraine is concerned, we know that the peace talks have begun in Istanbul between the Ukrainian and the Russian sides. We also know how the economy of the world, whether it be in terms of gas or oil or commodity prices, is going to be affected or has been affected. Do you feel that the parties that are concerned in this crisis understand what the impact of this current crisis is on the whole global economy?
Well, yes, I'm sure they do, because right now we know that it's Russia and Ukraine who are directly involved, but then we also know that Europe, NATO specifically, and USA are equally involved and concerned. And there are three things, as you mentioned, which are a direct consequence of this conflict. Firstly, of course, the cost of energy, be it gas or oil, and then of course food, because you know that Russia and Ukraine together, they provide about 25% of the wheat in the global market. And besides that, they have corn, they have sunflower oil and other food items which are provided to the world. And then of course, because of oil, the transportation cost does increase because with the rise in the oil price. And when Europe and the Americans put sanctions on Russia, then of course the trade gets affected, availability of energy and food gets affected, and it is of a direct consequence to Russia as well, because because of the sanctions, the oil sales are not there, the food sales are not there. Then of course it's a direct consequence to the Russian economy. And as it is, Ukraine is in the center of this conflict, and they're already being subjected to a lot of destruction.
When you look at the economic issues and the reaction that has come, you were talking of the global reaction, sir. The G7 says that paying for Russian gas in rubles is unacceptable. Japan says it is going to ask firms not to pay for Russian gas in rubles. Where is that going to lead to as far as the economy of this region is concerned?
Certainly, because countries like Pakistan specifically, with the increase in oil prices and of course the availability of wheat getting questioned, or its prices nearly getting doubled, they are going to burden a country like Pakistan, who do get to import wheat, and of course invariably they import oil, and this is going to increase the financial burden on countries like Pakistan, and of course we'll have to make sure that despite the COVID, while countries like Pakistan have wriggled through it, but with this increase in price of oil and wheat is going to add to the hardship of these countries and especially to the people.
All right. I'll come back to you, Ariba. Ariba, the EAW, that is the Economic Advisors Wing of the Ministry of Finance, it has released a monthly economic update and outlook. It talks about the global economy facing 3 challenges, and I'd like to quote them: financial crisis, commodity prices, supply chain disruptions due to this ongoing crisis between Russia and Ukraine. How much of that is going to intensify in the coming days?
With regards to the intensification, it will intensify even if we see a ceasefire and we see the conflict going away. It will intensify as supply chains will take time to get reinstated. And then also an important thing to take into account is the economic sanctions imposed on Russia and also derail other initiatives that are going on between Pakistan and Russia as part of the cooperation roadmap 2021-2026. So things like this are also important. It's going to affect the delivery and maintenance of transport, aircraft, and helicopter modernization and repairs of Pakistan Railway. So these things are also going to happen. Pakistan's army modernization plan will also be impacted. So if we talk about the finance ministry and the wing saying that it's going to impact supply chains and things of the sort, even with a ceasefire, immediate things going back into regular conditions, I don't see this cooling down immediately. Yes.
All right, Ariba, I would also like to ask your opinion on the report that has been taken out by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. That, of course, is an organization that helps developing countries integrate into the global economy. It talks about countries such as Angola, Egypt, Mongolia, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka that are going to be the countries that are extremely vulnerable to seeing their economies ground to a halt because of the towering debt servicing levels as a result of the current situation. What is your take on that?
With unprecedented circumstances, there will be some form of relief, relief like we saw during COVID as well, with regards to debt repayments. And we can see that the global world will come together in order to provide some remedy for this. However, it is of great importance to see how the current situation is going to add to the debt levels with regards to how much countries are going to import and how much of an excessive import bill they're going to face with regards to this. Like if we look at Pakistan, for instance, Pakistan's current import bill has drastically increased just because of this imported inflation that we're witnessing because of uncertainty in the global world. But in addition to that, I'd like to point out that the FDI that we're facing, even the startup inflows that we're seeing have slowed down because of the Ukraine-Russia crisis that's happening, as of which investment sentiments around the world have also been dampened.
All right, AVM Saab, I'd like to have your point of view on the latest update as far as Ukraine are concerned. Whereas UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres appeals for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Ukraine, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says he's going to meet briefly with with the Ukrainian and the Russian delegations ahead of these face-to-face talks that have also begun in Istanbul in Turkey, starting from today. US President Joe Biden says he's not walking anything back. He's not, after his weekend comment that Russian President Vladimir Putin cannot remain in power. Ukrainian foreign minister says that his ambitious goal at these talks with Russia is to agree on a ceasefire. All of this combined together, do you foresee peace in the region as a result of talks?
Well, eventually the peace will return to the region, and it will happen only through talks, because there has been enough destruction caused in Ukraine, and anything between 5 to 20,000 people have already died there. And I did come across in the press that the Ukrainian president is willing to accept a neutral position of Ukraine vis-a-vis NATO or the US or the Western region, and that is of course a core conditionality that Russia has put or asking for. However, there is right now, I guess, the discussion going on the status of Crimea and Donbass as to how Ukraine is going to respond to their being independent. And probably they will have to agree, because as it is, the Russians are going to continue to mount pressure. There is going to be more and more destruction, more and more killing that is going to take place.
And more pressure on Russia as well from the West.
Of course, but Russia is prepared to do that, at least to withstand that, because they, when they went into this conflict, of course, they did anticipate as to what could be the consequence.
True.
And they were prepared for it, hence they went in. And the fact is that while the NATO countries and the Americans do not concede to this, that there was an agreement in early 90s when Soviet Union was breaking up, that Germany would be reunited, and then of course these countries would be made independent. However, there was an understanding and agreement between the US, Europe and Russia that there will be no eastward expansion of NATO. And but on the other hand, we saw that gradually NATO continued to expand eastwards, and now we've seen so many more members.
And that is one of the apprehensions that Russia has as far as NATO is concerned, and that is why it does not want Ukraine to be a member of NATO. And that is what led to all of this. Had they agreed in the very beginning, in fact, to not make Ukraine part of NATO, and had officially decried that and talked about it, I mean, this wouldn't have come to this level. Anyways, we're a bit short of time. AVM Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. AVM Ikram Bhatti Saab, Ariba Shahid, economic journalist online. Thank you very much to have talked to us about the economic implications of this crisis that is engulfing this region, and of course Ukraine and Russia in particular. Nevertheless, we are pinning our hopes on these talks that are happening in Istanbul as we speak, these two-day talks that have begun today between the Ukrainian and the Russian sides. Let's hope peace prevails. Let's hope better sense prevails. With that, Umar Khalid bids you farewell from this edition of Newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news stories and segments. Stay tuned, stay safe. Allah Hafiz.